Welcome to the Agent Progression Podcast. We're your hosts, Brandon Baca.
And I'm R.L. Hessen.
And we're building your real estate business from the ground up. Stay tuned to the end of the episode. We got a big announcement we're going to make. We'll see you there. All right, podcast number 2. Had some great takeaways from the last one, had some great feedback from the last one, and I'm excited to get going into this second podcast. And today the title is Creating Your Plan, Time Management, and Understanding the Game. And so we're really going to break down residential real estate, the activities, the strategy that you need to be successful in this business. We're not going to sugarcoat it. Sometimes that's intimidating to people because we're like, hey, look, this is the hard work part of this, right? You're going to have to do some hard work. You're going to have to be conscientious. You're going to have to learn some sales skills. But ultimately, if you can achieve mastery in these different levels, you're going to be successful. And from the last podcast, we talked about the essential elements or basically the different hats that you wear as a real estate agent. Number 1 is the hat of lead generation or business development. Number 2 is the hat of customer service, so serving your clients. And number 3 is transaction management. And where we're going to dig in today is on the lead generation part. How does this work? And essentially, when I start with a new agent, we talk about goals. And RL, I'd be interested to hear, with your corporate background and, understanding goals, what your strategy is on setting goals. Mine is basically, I try not to make it too complicated. I'm just setting, with a new agent, I'm setting an income goal for them to understand. Because I think a lot of times we can get, overcomplicated in that portion of it or in that goal setting or create too many goals or create too much complication. But what does your strategy look like from a corporate perspective?
Yeah, I think it's very similar. The first thing we do is we write our goals down, period. They have to be written down. There's an accountability factor when you write it down. And, once that goal is set with your supervisor, we're holding you accountable to that goal in the future. And I think that's step 1. And a lot of people, that's a mentality thing. Like they have to have that written down before they really start to reach for it. And then the other thing, and speaking of reach, is that I always have a reach goal. Like I have some goals that are achievable. I wouldn't call them softballs, but some goals that are reachable. And then we always, look for that reach goal that's maybe going to put you a little bit out of your comfort zone.
Well, and the way I understand reach goal, and I don't know if we have alignment on this or not, but the way I understand a reach goal is like, what's the one goal that potentially is going to drive all of these others? What's the one goal that I'm going to focus on that's going to help all of these other things come into alignment? So I don't know if that's similar or not.
It's similar. I would say, it's really more about getting out of your comfort zone for me. I think that people far too often, they want to put goals down on paper that they know they're going to hit so they don't feel like they failed.
Right.
I want you to push yourself. I really want you to push yourself every step of the way. And I want a goal on paper that you think that you're going to have to work extra hard to hit. And then I'm going to start setting the expectation there next year.
Well, and I think that's maybe where I'm going with that is it's going to require a higher level of performance from yourself. So you're going to have to adjust other areas of your life to reach that particular goal, which simultaneously will affect these other areas of your life. It's like, okay, well, if I'm going to hit that goal, then I need to be well rested. If I'm going to hit that goal, I need to be at sort of this peak performance level, and I need to be exercising every day to be able to make sure my brain's sharp, things like that.
Yeah, and we're not going to write down goals. Don't get me wrong. We're not going to write down goals that I'm a brand new agent. I'm going to do 100 million next year. That's not getting written down.
Right.
Like these are goals that I know you can do if you apply yourself. And that's exactly what you're saying. I think it's just, it's going to start setting the stage for everything that you do on a daily basis. You're going to need time management, which we'll talk about on the podcast. You're going to have to understand your business processes and your systems to get there, but it's a stretch.
Yeah, absolutely. And there is interesting. I was looking this up. There's a Harvard study, and they had interviewed this class of students and talked about goal setting and what the result of goal setting. And there were only 3%, and we'll kind of cut to the chase here. There were only 3% of students that had written down their goals they studied this 3% over a period of time. I think it was like 10 years. And the 3% that had the habit of writing their goals earned 10 times more than 97% of the students put together.
Wow.
So write down your goals.
Absolutely.
Right? And review them often. And that's another portion. Don't write your goals down and then shove them in the back of a closet somewhere or stick them in your office where you're never going to see them again. I don't know about you, but I'm reviewing my goals like daily, weekly. Like I know what all my goals are from a week-to-week basis or day-to-day basis.
Yeah, when I do one-on-ones with my staff in the corporate world, that's exactly what we were doing. You know, you're writing down your goals, but then you're also bringing me material about what you're doing that week or that month to try to reach that specific goal. So I want very specific, detailed activity on what you're trying to do to hit that goal.
Yeah, and I can't stress it enough. I mean, it's been such a game changer for me, you know, as a part of the process. And I realize people coming into this business, you may not be there yet, but it's just get started in the habit and practice of setting goals, reviewing goals, having a weekly plan, like carrying that out. We'll get to time management in the next section, but it's just been such a game changer for me to have that weekly time to sit down, review the week, review my goals, and what are the things that I'm doing each day to move towards the achievement of those goals.
Yeah, and I really find most people learn more from those first few goals that they don't hit than the ones they hit from there on out, because they're like, hey, look at how far I came. I didn't get to my goal. I was close, but look at all the things I put into place so that next year when I set these goals, I'm gonna have a better understanding of goal setting, number one. Right. But number two, like I realized like I was able to do some stuff. So, you know, it's writing them down, it's accountability, it's all these things, and you're going to learn a lot in the process.
So one of the tools that I use is Full Focus Planner, and you can find that at fullfocus.co. That was created by a mentor of mine, Michael Hyatt, and that's been an essential part of my growth over the past several years is mastering the implementation of the Full Focus Planner and reviewing my weekly wins. What worked, what didn't work, reviewing my goals each week. What are the steps that I'm taking to achieve those goals? So I don't know what your process is for that. That's been an essential for me, is to have that planner, which may sound, you know, antiquated to have a planner that you actually write things down with a pen. But to me, that's been an essential in terms of like really connecting with my daily, weekly, monthly goals and also my process for achieving.
Yeah, so I do have a planner. I don't use Full Focus, though I have seen your Full Focus planner. I think it's a great planner. I use just a blank planner. I keep all my personal notes in there. If it's business notes or any sort of like to-do list that are specific to real estate or mortgage or whatever, I'm doing that electronically. But if it's personal in nature, I keep it in the planner. So goals, what I'm doing to reach those goals, you know, things like that.
Which brings me to another point, because I think this is the transition you have to make as a real estate agent if you're coming back into this business. Because if you're starting as a part-time real estate agent, or if you have a job where you're used to kind of like clocking in, clocking out in terms of your mental energy, and you're sort of keeping your schedule in your mind, and you're keeping or someone's creating your schedule for you, or if you're keeping those appointments, those goals, if you're keeping all of that mentally, you're going to have to shift to do the level of production, to be to have the level of professionalism. You're going to have to like have a second brain, right? Which is going to be, you've got to write things down. You got to have a planner. You got to have a task list. So that's been my experience, is like that. And it's been such a relief for me to have this place where I can store information that I don't have to constantly be thinking about it all the time.
Yeah. And who doesn't like to check things off?
Exactly.
Just put a check mark on it.
Yeah. Sometimes, now I'm of the personality type that sometimes I will write down something that I've already done just so that I can check it off.
Yeah. It's a mental thing.
Yeah. And so just understanding as a professional or moving into real estate, because the level of, you know, calls that you're gonna have to make, follow up, you need a second and sometimes third brain, and CRM. We'll talk about that in a minute. But you can't store all of the information in your head, because you're gonna go crazy and you're gonna lose sleep at night. and just have a place where you can house all of that information day to day.
Absolutely.
Okay, so let's move towards time management, and let's talk about what an essential practice that is. I find that people who are at the next level of professionalism consistently are very conscientious, very consistent time managers. They know, and this may be challenging to some of you, but I really don't know what I have going on from day to day until I look at my calendar. There's no way that I can remember personally, or can store that information in my head. So I basically wake up in the morning, after I've kind of done my morning routine, I'll look at my calendar for the day and I'll reconnect that with my daily planner. But that's been it. I remember making that transition where I'm like, there's no way I can remember from day to day what I've got going on, because there are so many appointments, so many things. And you probably, I would say in the corporate world, you guys live and die by that calendar.
Absolutely. And, I would say that this is career agnostic. It does, if you're bad at time management, you're probably not going to get very far. It's a skill that you have to learn quickly to excel or to progress in your career. I mean, it's basic calendaring is just one aspect of it. Time blocking is another, but there's just a lot of stuff that hinges on time management and how good you are at that skill.
Yeah, absolutely. So if you're coming into real estate, whether you're part-time or full-time or whatever your approach is, right, coming into real estate, I'm going to tell you, just do Google Calendar. Most professionals that I connected with use Google Calendar. It's a very common language in the business world, and a very common language with the people that you're going to be communicating with. Even your clients, a lot of your clients are going to use Google Calendar. That's been my experience.
Yeah. I mean, I think some enterprises like in the corporate world, start to get into Outlook and whatnot because they're synced with Office 365 or whatever. But Google Calendar is the best place to start, specifically in real estate. Everybody uses it. Just like Brandon said, you could probably schedule your closing on it. Your clients use it. Everybody typically these days has a Gmail or is familiar with Gmail. So it's the best place to start. And don't just add your professional stuff to it. Add your family stuff in. Yeah. That's one of the aspects of time management. I mean, if you are booking appointments and don't realize your kids have soccer practice, it's bad time management. So, I mean, there's just a lot that goes into knowing where you need to be and when you need to be there, and keeping that in a cohesive spot.
Yeah, awesome. And I want to go backwards just a minute, because for each of you guys that's listening, you have an income goal, whether stated or unstated, right? That's in your mind. By the way, with real estate agents, I find this is typically $100,000 a year, right? Typically, when you're getting started as a real estate agent, you want to hit that 6-figure income mark. That's something that I would say 80 to 90% of agents, when they're out of the gate, that's sort of their initial goal. And it's absolutely achievable. It's remarkably achievable in real estate when you consider how much commission you can make per sale. But let's just start with that income goal of $100,000 or whatever it is for you, right? Just start with the income goal. And then when we go into the time management piece, I say, like, before, the first thing that you do is put all of your personal stuff in. If you've got to drop your kids off at school, you got to pick them up from school. If you've got birthday parties, if you've got date night, days off, your kids' birthdays, you take off at 3:00 every day for your kids' birthdays. Put all of that stuff in first, right? Because that's the most important part of your life, is going to be your family life, and making sure that the relationships that are most important are given the time that they need. So that's essential, is to schedule that family time and personal time first. Okay. And then after that, we're going to move to your work-life commitments. So if you're coming into real estate part-time, you need to put your work schedule in there. Whatever sort of volunteer charity work that you're going to do, you got to mow the lawn every Saturday, go ahead and put all that stuff in, right? So now, once we've put in all of our personal stuff, all of our sort of work-life stuff in the calendar, then we see what time is available for you to do real estate. So that's going to be essential, right? And that will give you an idea of where your available time is. And you will be shocked. I think when people get into time management, I find that they're shocked by how much time that they do have.
Yeah. Writing it down is the key to figuring that out. But yeah, I would say more often than not, they're shocked.
Right. And it's like, okay, if we can kind of dump Netflix binging and we can dump, some of that stuff where we're just wasting time, scrolling Instagram, whatever, you have a pretty good amount of time to do the things that are essential to creating your success. But it's going to require you to reorient your life. And that's where it becomes challenging is we sometimes don't want to let go of our old habits to create the success that we need. And so I want to challenge you, if you're listening to this and you're going, all right, I don't feel like I have enough time. You're lying to yourself. You have enough time to do the things that are essential. You're just wasting it on stuff you shouldn't be doing.
Yeah, if you elevate the importance of the activity, you're absolutely going to have enough time. I mean, most people wake up in the morning and they're like, all right, I got to drop my kids off at school. I got to pick my kids up. I got to get them to soccer practice. I've got to wash my car. And then they put it all down in a calendar or on paper. And they're like, well, that takes up 3 hours of my day.
Right.
So, where's the other, 8 or 9 hours? So I think that's right. I think more often than not, people are shocked by the amount of time that they sit around on TV or doing something that's not important. Mm-hmm. And once they get that on paper, they're like, all right, I've got some time to prospect or do whatever it is that I need to do today.
So the most challenging person that I've ever had to work with on the time management thing was a professional. And he really had a packed schedule. It was, dawn to dusk, dropping off kids, working, all of that stuff, right? And I remember we had 1 hour a day in which he could do real estate. And we had 1 full day per week, right? As he was making the transition from part-time to full-time real estate.
And that's pretty tight. That's tight.
That was super tight, but we created a whole real estate career out of it. And now he is the broker of our Texas branch. That's Adrian Martinez. So he was a manager for Nordstrom, and all we had to work with was 1 hour a day and Thursdays. Okay. And we built a whole real estate career on that, and he transitioned into full-time real estate, and now he's got a very successful career. And so even if you are a professional that's very dialed in on your time, there's still enough time to create a career. All right, so we've kind of gotten to the time management part, and the other thing that I'll say in time management is in having a second or third brain is to really, if you don't have a CRM, you need to get a CRM. Because with the level of outreach that you need to do to prospects and follow-up that you need to do with prospects and information, there's no real way that you're going to be able to keep up with that level of production unless you've got that sort of sales brain that operates outside of you, that's reminding you. And once you learn how to master that CRM, it's going to be better. By the way, if you don't know what a CRM is, it is software it's a customer relationship manager. It's software that's developed to remind you of who your clients are, when you need to follow up with them, and keeps notes on what you discussed with them the last time you talked. Right. And so you need to create some sort of mastery in your CRM. And I'm sure your sales guys in the past, I would imagine that they had to use and monitor a CRM.
Yeah, absolutely. We were in Salesforce constantly. I totally agree that every agent needs a CRM. I will caution you, and this is coming from a tech guy, right? Yeah. I love tech. Yeah. My whole career's been built on tech. Do not get your head buried too far in technology too early. Yeah. As a new agent, I've seen people get so caught up with what technology they have and all the integrations and everything set up properly, and they're the same people that won't even call their sphere to tell them they're now a real estate agent.
Right.
There are some very basic things that Brandon or I or someone at our brokerage or outside of our brokerage can teach you about real estate that don't require any technology to go out there and do. I do think a CRM is important. I do think you should get one, and I do think that it's definitely going to improve your follow-up. But outside of that, I would just not bury your head too far in technology.
Yeah.
I think you just need to pick up the phone, start making those calls, start prospecting, and then see where the technology piece leads you. And again, that's coming from someone whose life's been built on technology.
Right, which is a perfect segue into the next portion of this conversation, which is lead generation. And is the real driving force of our conversation today, which is like, what are leads? And I think, leads in real estate is a buzzword that's thrown around a lot. And people join brokerages because they're going to get leads, or this is a bad lead, this is a good lead. And so I want to give you guys an understanding of what leads actually are, and how to visualize and perceive and have a solid paradigm on how to process real estate conversations, because that's basically all leads is potential real estate conversations, and then how you process them. And so a lot of our conversations in real estate are around leads. And so I've found there are 3 ways to break down leads. And first, before we even get into that, I will tell you there's no such thing as a bad lead.
I was going to say that. You said bad leads earlier. I was like, no such thing.
That's exactly right. What did I say it in regards to something?
No, you had said like, everybody's talking about good leads, bad leads. And I'm like, yeah, no bad leads.
There are no bad leads, right? If you look at the landscape of our culture, right? Everybody is a potential home buyer. Right. So it's not for the majority. I mean, there's for a large portion of the population, it's not if they're going to buy a house, it's when. And so understanding that you're going to be having multiple real estate conversations with potential buyers, but they might not be ready to buy yet. And basically what I found is there are in every lead, you're just trying to figure out 2 things. What's their timeline for buying? And what is the reason that they're buying the house? So it's timeline, and intention. So timeline and intention are the 2 things that you want to focus on. And that's going to help you categorize where these leads go in your lead flow, right? In your lead funnel in terms of potential buyers and sellers. So where we start there is I use the acronym ART, A-R-T. So I start with aspirational leads. Those are people who like to look at Zillow at night before they go to bed, or like to look at Zillow when they wake up in the morning, or are looking at houses, go to open houses for fun. I always think that's interesting. I don't like to do anything real estate at home or look at real estate because it's like going to work after work. But there are people who have a dream to buy a house, right? Or have a dream for their next house. Those are your aspirational leads. Do they buy houses? Yes. But it's when. So the average buy cycle for an aspirational lead is just over a year. It's 368 days. So where I find, or what I find interesting when in conversations with real estate agents are they're saying things like, oh, I've got these buyers, but I can't get them off the fence. I can't get them to make a decision. And it's because you haven't discovered their intention yet. They're not in a place where they have to buy. And I think that's where, if you've gotten into real estate in the last couple of years, you might be confused, because so many people bought houses because of the interest rate, or bought houses because they felt like, I can't stay in this house any second longer. I need a bigger house, right? Because you're in COVID lockdown and you're looking at the walls, and you're like, this thing's too small. I need something bigger. If I'm going to be home, I want to buy a bigger house. So people's reason for buying over the last couple of years has been different versus what's typical in the marketplace, which is people buying because they have to.
Yeah, new babies come in, they're outgrowing their house, whatever it is.
Right, because moving sucks.
Yeah.
Like, you move a lot, or you have moved a lot in the past. Yeah. It's not fun.
No, it's not fun at all.
Right. And so
I blame my wife.
And any time I've moved, I remember we moved from Oklahoma City to Franklin, and we had 2 full-size Hertz trucks that we brought from Oklahoma City to Franklin. And we got here, and I'm like, why did I do that? Like, why did I just sell all of my stuff and just buy new stuff because the moving expense alone, I'm like,
It's
I could have
terrible.
just bought all new furniture.
It's terrible. And I said I blame my wife. I actually don't blame my wife. It was a communal decision, but moving is terrible. And you're right. We actually had an agent today that had a scenario where they had converted a FSBO, and they were listing the house for them, and it had been on the market a while, and the price, she thought it was overpriced. And there was a house down the street that was same floor plan but better condition, price lower, still not selling. And she's like, this guy won't drop the price. And I'm just thinking in my head, he's not ready. And
Right.
I'm like, there's something there. Turns out, it's mom's house. It's fully paid for. Mom just passed away. All right. Well, he's not ready to sell it. If
No.
he was, he'd be dropping the price. So you've always got to find out that intention, whether it's buying or selling, whatever it is. There's something there in their life that's going to make that decision more immediate, and you got to figure out what that is.
Yeah, and so don't get frustrated if you've got people who are not moving at the pace because it's basically based on their intention and a have to scenario. Okay, which brings us to our next. So remember we're back to that acronym ART. So aspirational is 12 months out, your 368 day buy cycle. All right, the next is the research leads, which is those are people who actually know or have an idea of where they're moving, when they're moving. And it's typically like, hey, Johnny's got to be in this new school system, or because he's starting kindergarten next year, or there's a job movement, or we've got a baby on the way and we want to buy a house. So those conversations look a little bit different because they have some amount of possibility in their decision making that they're going, all right, well, this is kind of like they've got it narrowed down. It's not just a dream anymore. It's becoming more immediate in terms of like, we need to do this by this in this amount of time.
Yeah, I'm seeing a lot of we're about to renew our lease in 6 months, and I've got to find a house before I renew my lease.
Right.
I'm seeing that a lot right now in Nashville.
Yeah, especially with rent prices right now, and it's like, man, it's just such a better scenario and situation for you to buy for what people are paying for rent right now. So yeah, those people are going to be, again, research leads. They're 6 to 12 months out. And again, are you going to show them houses from time to time? Yes, but you need to limit the time that you're spending. And that's one of the things that I'll talk about. Well, let's kind of divert a little bit and talk about the amount of time you spend with aspirational or research leads, because it's like a lot of people will spend, and some of these, by the way, some of these A's and R's will completely take your time looking at houses.
Oh yeah, they just want to look. Everything on Zillow comes up. They want to go see it, and good and well they're not going to buy for 6 more months. So yeah, you can't let that happen.
Right, because that's just, you have so much available time and energy to spend, and so don't get sucked into looking at every single thing that pops on the market for them, or going to look at 5 houses every weekend when they have no real reason to buy, or no real immediacy, rather, than in terms of buying a house. So, and by the way, I've gotten myself stuck in that situation. I had this client, and they wanted to look every single Saturday at 5 to 6 houses, and they had no real immediacy behind buying, and so they didn't. So you just have to be guarded with your time. And I'm not saying like, because I know a lot of people are like, well, I don't want to lose that client. I don't know if you have any tips about navigating that relationship in terms of with that potential client that wants to look at everything that comes on the market.
Yeah, I think it's really just more telling them how the market is right now. Like that was a really easy conversation during COVID. You just be like, look, everything's flying off the market in a day or two. Like there's no reason for us to look until you're more ready to buy. But one thing I love that happened during COVID is it turned into such a market where you had to have a pre-approval letter to even submit an offer. Like that didn't used to happen. Now it did. So that told us how serious the clients were. Like if they were willing to go out, work with a mortgage loan officer, get pre-approved, they're pretty serious. And sometimes people will say, hey, I'm ready to buy. And they're not for whatever reason. But if they're going down that path, they're getting credit pulled, they're doing things like that, then they're probably more ready to buy. So I did like that occurred, because now you know you got a pre-approval letter in hand. You think they're a little bit more serious. Yeah. But outside of that, as far as tips go, I mean, I think it's just having that conversation. Like, are we ready to pull the trigger? If not, then let's kind of get an idea of what we're looking for in the area we're looking in. Maybe let's drive on a Saturday if I don't got any appointments. That we'll take a look at the areas that you want to be in, and we'll start to get an idea. But let's not look at every house that comes on the market until we're a little bit closer. And that little bit closer right now is like 30 days out, 45 days out.
Yeah, and I think as an agent, you're always like a little bit, you don't want to piss anybody off.
Yeah.
And so you can create some hesitation around, it's like, well, I don't want to tell them no, because most of the good agents I know are people pleasers at some level. And so telling somebody no or giving them boundaries for when you're going to look at houses can be scary, because you're afraid you're going to lose that client. But I'm going to encourage you, look, setting healthy boundaries for showings and having honest communications with your clients is the fastest way to become a successful agent.
And you can still be helpful without escorting them. You can say, hey, look, based on what we've talked about, I think you'd be interested in these 3 neighborhoods. Why don't you and your husband or you and your significant other go drive these neighborhoods and let me know what you think. And if you like them, then as we get closer to our target, this is where we'll start shopping. But I mean, you can provide all kinds of, like, if you want to be close to really trendy restaurants or this or that, then you can start to suggest neighborhoods that they ride around in. But there's tons of ways to be helpful to your client without your time getting sucked.
Yeah, you can stay in front of them and you can be helpful, and you don't have to, jump at every time they want to go look at a house. All right, which brings us to our next status and lead generation, right? Which is the transactional buyer, and those are 0 to 6 months. And so those are people who need to buy or sell in the immediate future. And here's what I'll tell you. When you are starting a real estate business, the first thing that you need is cash flow. And that's where people get sideways, is because they'll create so much distance in their pipeline, because everybody that they talk to is 12 months out, 6 months out. And so, or they're talking to their SOI, and we talked about that last week, is like, look, your SOI, your sphere of influence, the people that you know, right? They're probably not going to use you for a little while, or if they are in that transactional stage, they're probably already working with a realtor and aren't going to pivot and use you just because you just got your license, or want to use you because you just got your license. And so we've got to start having conversations with people who are ready to buy and sell right now, which I find are for sell by owners and open houses. And here's what I can tell you about for sell by owners. They are, how do I say this? If they were a lead source that you paid for based on the conversion rate, which for sell by owners convert at around 10 to 16%. 10 to 16% of the conversations that you have with for sell by owners, they're going to list their house with you if you do proper follow-up. If I were to pay for a lead source that was 10 to 16%, it would be thousands of dollars a month.
Yeah.
And they are free, right? You go on Zillow, you drop down the for sale by owner menu, and you pull up, there's a map there. You pull up the for sale by owners. It looks like all of a sudden that map got chicken pox, and that's your lead source. And it's one of the most profitable lead sources in the industry. Here's the difference. And this is why people don't want to do it, because they don't call you, you have to call them.
Yep.
And that is so funny to me. It's like the difference in an inbound phone call and an outbound phone call is free to thousands of dollars a month. And it's like, and so we encourage our agent at 10 Oaks. It's like, that's a primary lead source that you need to focus on. And I remember there was an agent I was talking to, and she's like, well, I don't like to do for sale by owners. And I'm like, listen, it's a free lead source. You're paying all of this money for lead sources. This one's free. Like, you need to be doing it. And sure enough, one of the agents on our team got a listing for $850,000 from her for sale by owner. So if you're
like 1 week after we coached her to do this.
Right. So if you're not doing for sale by owners, you need to be. right? Start reaching out, start making those phone calls, start mastering the scripts and for sale by owners. Because when you do them right, like, by the way, and here's how this works. Okay. And this is how it works with most lead sources or most transactional lead sources. Okay. So so if you make 3 phone calls, 1 out of 3, you're going to set an appointment. Okay. And then from there, 50-50, show, no show. So if half of them are going to cancel, reschedule, say that they got a contract. By the way, when for sale by owner says they have a contract, do not stop following up with them.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because it might not be a contract for real, right? It might just be a
Someone said they might submit an offer
Right.
or whatever. Yeah.
or there's a high chance that in those scenarios that those deals bust because neither side knows what they're doing. So you've got to, so 1 out of 3, you're going to set the appointment. You're going to have a 50-50 no-show rate. And then of those that you set appointments with, if you do proper follow-up, 10 to 16% will convert. So if you go on basically 10 appointments, you're going to get a listing. So if you think about time spent in generating leads, it's an essential. You need to be doing it. You need to be doing for sale by owners. The second thing, open houses. And this open houses have a lot of like negative talk around them in the industry from realtors who say, oh, open houses are a waste of time. Open houses don't sell houses.
Nobody does them anymore.
Nobody does them anymore.
Yeah.
Let me tell you something. That's one of the biggest lies in the industry. Open houses are a fantastic way to source business.
And it doesn't even have to be your listing. Find someone in your brokerage that's having an open house and do it for them.
Absolutely.
They'll be happy to let you sit there on a Sunday.
So the way you have to think about open houses is that they are a store. It's like a pop-up shop, and the product is not the house. The product is you as the real estate agent, right? So it's an opportunity for you to showcase your expertise and skill. So think about that. It's like every weekend you have an opportunity to create a store for yourself, right? Where you're going to get to interact with people that are going to walk in off the street, right? And yes, I will say they're there primarily to look at the house, but you can create connection points with them. And again, that conversion rate is extremely similar to for sale by owners. It's somewhere between 10 and 16%. But you've got to put some effort into the open house, right? You can't just like show up day of, throw a couple of signs out. Like you need to do some effort, some build up, some social media, great signage, go knock doors in the neighborhood, but that will create a lead source. I'll tell you a story real quick. So when I first got my real estate, or when I first went to real estate full time in 2011, and I had 4 kids and I've got to provide for all of these. I was doing open houses every single Sunday, right from 2 to 4. And I remember my wife coming to me and saying, hey, do you have to do these every single Sunday? Because what else happens on Sundays? Birthday parties and football and like all of the sort. There's a lot of fun things that happen on Sundays. So Sunday fun day, right? And so I was like, well, maybe not. And so I went back to the office and I ran numbers. And this is in Oklahoma City. The average sale price at the time was $158,000, which is hard to believe now. But I counted up like how much money I had made on contacts that I had met on open houses that I'd bought. And so it turned out on average, I was making $1,500 on open houses every Sunday. So I was making $700 an hour on doing these open houses. And so I went back and told my wife that, and she goes, yeah, you need to keep doing it.
Maybe on Saturday too.
Exactly. We're going to add a day to it.
Because by now you're probably on kid number 5.
Yeah, that's right. That's exactly right. So, open houses are extremely profitable if you've done them the right way. And I would encourage any agent, just like RL said, it's like, you don't even have to have your own listings. There are so many opportunities. You can call there are other realtors in your brokerage. There are other realtors and other brokerages that will be happy to let you do an open house for them.
And they don't realize how good open houses are, so they don't want to sit there, and they're happy to let you do them. Do the research though. Make sure you know every open house, in your, kind of radius there. Know all the listings that are available. Have a lot of information going into that open house so that you are the resource. When somebody walks in, they're obviously looking at that house or they're there for a reason. So understand the market. that you're in, understand the neighborhood, understand where you're at, and make sure that you are able to provide them anything and everything that they need. And you might not be their realtor yet,
Right.
Or ever, but you're there to provide information and hopefully convert them into your buyer.
Yeah. And the other thing is, like, neighbors are going to come through, right? And people go, oh, I don't want a bunch of looky-loos through my open house. Pump them for information, right? Have them tell you about what's going on in the neighborhood. What do they like the most, right? Which in turn makes you the expert in the neighborhood. There's a little feature on the MLS where you can set up agent previews for houses to go look at a house that's on the market. Go set them up before the open house. Go look and learn what other products are on the market so you can speak knowledgeably about all the other listings in the neighborhood that aren't doing an open house today and potentially show those houses to other clients. And by the way, if you've met someone at an open house and you set an appointment, and this is what I used to do all the time, I would know everything that was on the market. I would specifically know the vacant houses that were on the market that didn't require any like pre-thought in terms of like I could just set it and it was immediately going to confirm the showing request. So I would be at the open house and I said, well, have you guys seen this one? It's vacant. We can go look at it. It's like, I get off here at 4:00. I'll meet you there at 4:15. I did that as often as I could, because when you show one client a house or a potential client a house, your chances of picking them up as a client goes up to like 60%.
Wow.
Because it's like reciprocity,
Yeah,
right? You gave them a service. You did something extra for them. The other thing I used to do at an open house is I'd lock up right as it ended because I knew somebody was going to roll in at 4:02. And then I'm opening the house back up for them and turning back all the lights again because now I'm doing them a favor and there's that reciprocity there. I picked up so many clients that way by just knowing what was available, setting up a showing. Like my goal on every open house is to set a showing for after that open house to up my opportunity of picking up clients.
Yeah. I like the one where you said you opened the door and turned the lights back on to do them a favor. I like that one. That's a great one.
And that's just human nature. Like if you do something for somebody,
Absolutely.
They're going to feel some sort of like responsibility to reciprocate. And so, yeah, use those as an opportunity. And yeah, it blows my mind that there are agents that say open houses don't work. They do work. Use them. Okay, so I think we've kind of gone over all of the stuff we meant to talk about. So let's just do a recap of the episode. So, step 1 is have written goals. Write them down. Keep them in front of you. Step 2 is time management, right? Make sure you've got a calendar that you're connected with, that you are staying on top of. Number 3, understand how the game works, right? Focus on those transactional lead sources, but understand there's no such thing as a bad lead. Categorize people based on time and intention. And we got a big announcement today.
We do.
Do you want to talk about it?
Let's talk about it. So, we kind of rolled into this under the Agent Progression banner.
Mm-hmm.
We've done a webinar series. We've had a group for a while on Facebook.
Yeah.
But we've been working with a company by the name of FIFO. Mm-hmm. They have done brands. They're a marketing firm. They've done brands such as Nashville Barrel Company, some other big names out there. And funny story, real quick. So I had actually, we were actually looking for a marketing firm for 10 Oaks.
Yeah.
And I had actually come to you and said, hey, I've met the guys several times over at Nashville Barrel. I like what they're doing. Mm-hmm. We should reach out to that firm. Right. And we didn't connect the dots at the time, but you were already in talks with FIFO.
You didn't tell me this.
And I didn't tell you this.
No.
So you were already in talks with FIFO, and then we connected the dots, or I connected the dots. Yeah. Sounds like you weren't even aware of what was going on, and it turns out that you were already talking to them for 10 Oaks, and we ended up signing a contract with them for 10 Oaks. But long story short, Richard and Cole, we've been working with them from FIFO for 3 or 4 weeks on the 10 Oaks brand. Mm-hmm. And we asked them to pivot and help us kind of shape what we wanted to do here with Agent Progression. And they, went in their cave and came back out with just, I thought, knocked it out of the park.
No question. Home run. Yeah.
I mean, I was so impressed with, what they came up with, and even though we had asked them to completely pivot. I mean, they were 3-4 weeks deep on 10 Oaks, and we just said, hey, come help us with this. And so we're going to be operating under the brand The Agent Bridge. If you want to see kind of what the brand looks like, get a sneak peek, go to theagentbridge.com. We're going to have a social media page. We're going to have a YouTube channel. We're doing the podcast under The Agent Bridge starting next week.
Right.
But we're super excited with the brand. If you want to see kind of more about FIFO, go look them up too. Is it we should have known their website. Is it FIFOagency.com?
That's right. FIFOagency.com.
Okay, perfect.
And I couldn't have said it any better. I mean, they've just done a phenomenal job. And not only did they pivot with us, they pivoted it with us with a fantastic attitude about it. Like they were bought into helping us shape this new brand. And I am just incredibly excited about it, incredibly excited about the offering in terms of what value we can bring to you guys as real estate agents. And I'm excited to work under this new banner and just solidified my decision, like even more so to work with FIFO and Richard and Cole to create something amazing. Yeah. So I'm pumped about it.
Yeah. And I'm not an emotional person. I'm not an excitable person. You know me, I stay like within the tackles, right? Like,
right.
But when they came to meet with us with this brand, I was like, these guys are amazing. I was so excited.
Yeah.
And I've told them that 100 times. They're probably sick of hearing it at this point, but great company. If you guys have any marketing needs, reach out to them. A fantastic group of guys, and just, they do great work. Couldn't have been more impressed. So yeah, we'll go to theagentbridge.com, check it out. We'll start our new podcast next week under that banner. And
can we at least can we say that's episode 3 though, with the new brand?
Absolutely. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. We're not starting over, but it'll be episode 3, but under a new brand.
Awesome. Well, guys, hey, thank you so much for joining us this week. We'll talk to you next week. Bye.
Bye.